Agenda. Are there any speakers on the floor that would like to comment on the agenda?
There's no one present.
Okay. Okay, do we have a motion on the agenda?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second the motion.
Chairman Peters,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hayman,
Aye.
Director Vallejo,
Aye.
Director Griffin,
Aye.
Director Itmeyer.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Yeah, thank you. Next is public comment on closed session agenda, and as there's nobody present, are there any callers on the phones?
None.
Okay. With that, we will adjourn to closed session and reconvene no earlier than 10:45.
Thank you, Chairman. The board met in closed session on the Mojave Pistachio matter. We also briefly met on the Searles Valley matter. There is nothing to report on the Searles Valley matter at this point, and it is also listed for a closed session later in the meeting, but we wanted to get the meeting opened at the time we promised. I'm pleased to announce that out of closed session, we can announce a settlement with Mojave Pistachios and the GA on all of the litigation between Mojave and the GA. It was done on a motion by Director Hayman, a second by Director Vallejo, and it's a unanimous vote with Chuck abstaining. This settlement it marks a change in this GA and where we've been in litigation, but I want to give you a little bit of the deal points, and I'll let others speak. I know Josh, I think, wants to speak in a few moments about it, but here's the general deal points to it. All the litigation will be dismissed between Mojave and the GA. Mojave will be allowed in the adjudication to argue for its percentage of water right of the safe yield, but it will not argue anything about safe yield. It will not try to increase safe yield. It will be out of that phase of trial if that phase of trial continues. They will not seek any stored water in the basin beyond what is provided for by the GA. Mojave will pay the GA $1.1 million. They've already paid that in extraction fees for the past 4 years they've been pumping. It will pay an additional $1.6 million for the water that they pumped in those years. They will also then be entitled to a percentage of a second transient pool, which this GA is going to create. Now, you'll understand reasons why we're able to create that in a later board announcement, but we will be creating a second transient pool with 20,000 acre-foot of water. Mojave will be entitled to 16,000 acre-foot of that. The remaining 4 will go to the other ag. You'll understand we've been able to do that because you're going to hear some announcements about our funding for our pipeline shortly. I don't want to step on anybody's thunder, so I'll hold back some of that. There is going to be a sliding scale on how much is paid in this second transient pool. It's on an annual basis. It's $150 an acre foot for the first 1,000 feet, $175 for the second 1,000 feet, $200 for the third, and $225 for the fourth. It goes on from there, but Mojave has not been using that much water, and they don't expect to in the future. The remaining 4,000 of this 20,000 acre foot pool, like I was saying, will be set aside for other agricultural producers in the basin. To get access to that, they will have to pay on this scale, and they will have to agree to settlement terms in the adjudication moving forward that are roughly equivalent to what Mojave has agreed to. The total fees that the GA can expect to receive from this is $6.3 million. And I think I just close out by saying I hope this is a major turning point for this authority and where we've been in a bunch of needless litigation, I think. And that's all I have to report.
Thank you. And I just wanted to express my appreciation to Mojave as well as their team and staff that have been working to make this possible. And I don't know if Mr. Nugent was there in the audience if you wanted to speak now, or if that would be more appropriate under public comment time.
Whichever you would prefer, sir.
Okay, I can't see the audience right now, but I'll leave that open to Mr. Nugent.
Josh is walking up.
Okay, great.
Oh, there we go. Joshua Nugent, Mojave Pistachios. I did want to say thank you to the GA board on behalf of Mojave Pistachios that we've got a resolution. I think anyone who runs a business knows that uncertainty is the real killer. And so having some parameters to operate under is appreciated. Most importantly, I'd like to thank really through the board, Kern County and Supervisor Peters for including the portion for the smaller farmers. I think that's really important and will hopefully be a good opportunity for some of the other farmers in the area as they decide to make their own decisions. It gives them another opportunity, so I appreciate that. No offense to Attorney Hall, but I'm very glad that there will be less attorney fees in general in all directions. I think that's probably a good thing in any situation. And I'm sure we'll probably have a statement at some other point, but really I just wanted to say we appreciate all the work that everyone's done. You know, in the end, it might not be everything that either side wanted, but like all good things, there's compromise. And so we appreciate that, and hopefully that spirit will, you know, move through the valley and all sides can work together. So we appreciate that. And most importantly, I did again wanted to express that hopefully this does show that this GA board, and especially Kern County, that ag is important, and that even though SGMA has some impacts that, you know, are going to hit all sectors, that Kern County through Supervisor Peters and the board is trying to look out for ag and trying to help find ways to transition to what things are going to look like in the future. So anyway, appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nugent. Thank you again to you and Mojave Pistachio for your willingness to work with us on trying to find some solutions to this. So next up is the Pledge of Allegiance. So please rise. Salute. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Finally, roll call.
Chairman Peters,
Here.
Vice Chair Hayman,
Present.
Director Griffin,
Here.
Director Vallejo,
Present.
Director Itnyer.
Here. Okay, thank you. Next up, we have board member announcements, and I'm going to go ahead and start by making an exciting announcement. I'm pleased to announce that the U.S. Congress completed the conference committee report on the Water Resource Development Act of 2024. This morning, WRDA had its final vote in the House of Representatives, where it was passed 399 to 18. The bill's final version authorizes $50 million for a water supply infrastructure and designates construction of the interconnection pipeline, which will connect this basin to the California State Water Project, which affordably delivers water to 27 million Californians. The Senate is expected to take its final vote on Tuesday, and the president has indicated that he will sign the bill into law. The board will have a full update during our January meeting, but Michael McKinney from Capital Corps is available now to answer any questions. I want to take a moment to stress how important this development is. This commitment provides the community with reassurance that the basin's overdraft issues will be addressed in a positive manner with federal funding that allows the Navy to continue and even expand its mission. Importantly, this commitment has allowed this board to move forward with this settlement of litigation with Mojave Pistachios. And this commitment has allowed this board to create a second transient pool that will provide local farms that cannot afford to import water more time to prepare for the cessation of pumping, while also providing some revenue that can be used for the benefit of this community. We would especially like to thank the Department of the Navy and the United States Army Corps of Engineers for stressing to Congress the critical importance and nature of this project. And just on a personal note, I wanted to thank Capital Corps and staff for all their hard work on this. This is very exciting, and this is going to be a huge boon to the community, and just well done, and appreciate all your hard work. So with that, are there any other board member announcements?
This is Director Heyman. I just want to thank Josh for his comments, and I'm in agreement with what you said, and I want to thank you. So. And back to WRDA, this is a huge day. So a lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into getting to this point, and I'd like to ask Michael McKinney to just kind of explain the last little bit of, explain that the last final step that will take place with the passing of the WRDA.
Yes, very good. Thank you, Chairman Peters, and also Councilmember Heyman and Director Heyman for your kind words on this. Essentially, on Tuesday, the United States Senate will take WRDA 24 up as a unanimous consent measure, and we believe will pass. We have been in discussion with both the minority and the majority whips of the parties. We believe that the bill will pass. In addition, we have discussed the bill with the Office of the President, and the recommendation from the Department of Defense is to sign the bill at this particular point. So we do not see any hurdles, barring the President having a personal issue with the legislation. Those actions will take place, the Senate action will take place next week. I would expect the President to sign it prior to December 31st. And then the next steps will be for us to begin working with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in a letter of intent that will probably be before the board in January. Those are the steps involved. The U.S. Army Corps will be the administrator over the construction of the pipeline. So they will take over construction based upon a timeline and an agreement once we come up with those agreements, probably sometime in 2025, 2026, once planning activities are complete. And I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Chairman, if I may, I have a question for Mr. McKinney that I think he's underselling what he's done here.
Yes.
Michael, is there any other provisions in this WRDA bill that you worked on that would probably be of benefit for the public to hear?
There are two policy provisions, thank you, Bill. There are two policy provisions that we did support that are in the bill, one of which is a provision that deals with alternative delivery methodologies. The regulations are not set forward on this from Army Corps. It's a brand new program, but this essentially would allow Stetson engineers or whomever the board chooses to act as the project manager along with the Army Corps, and for those expenses to be included. In addition, there is a provision in the bill that talks about the ability to pay in disadvantaged communities. There may be a possibility that we will be applying for that as the entire region does serve as a disadvantaged community with the exclusion of the city of Ridgecrest. That is not a disadvantaged community under the definition, but the entire basin does. And so it may create a situation where we're able to go beyond that 75% for the federal share. That is all to be determined by regulation, and we have a lot of work to do over the course of the next 2 years to kind of work on that, but we are working on those provisions at this time.
Perfect. Well, thank you again, Mike and Capital Corps team. This is very exciting news. Are there any other announcements or comments from the board? Okay, I'm not seeing any. We'll go now to public comment. This time is reserved for the public to address the board on matters not on this agenda. No action will be taken on non-agenda items unless authorized by law, and comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Are there any members of the public that would like to address the board?
Judy Decker. First of all, I too would like to thank Michael McKinney and Capital Corps for all the hard work over these last several years that they have done for this area. Your untiring pursuit of opportunity for us has been amazing. But the other thing I have is a question. You stated, Mr. Hall, that you were creating a second transient pool. Have you thought through and created the ending to that transient pool at this time? Because the existing transient pool has a deadline of when farmers can quit pumping, does it not?
It does. Chairman, if I may answer the question, it does. It's 2040, which lines up with our current GSP's end date. It's our planning horizon. We didn't expect anybody to actually be pumping till 2040. I don't think they will now. The second transient pool wouldn't get us to 2040 either.
Right.
And you might be asking, so I'm hearing the question, what I'm also hearing is maybe how are these transient pools set up and what size is it? This transient pool will roughly be the equivalent amount of water used and overdrafted from the basin by ag that will be used and overdrafted by the basin by those that remain in the basin and eventually receive imported water when the construction is finished. So they might be a little bit over the 50-50 split now. It'll be close depending on when construction occurs. And they're actually going to be paying, as I said, another $6 million that isn't being paid by the others. So
I have another question. I note that I do not believe Stetson is on the agenda for today. And I also believe that the revision to the GSP is due to the state the end of January 2025. How are you going to fit this into that?
it will be part of what we put together. Whether or not we do this January, how far developed the policy is for what goes into the, I don't want to say amendment, the update to the GSP, what we submit to the state, that'll go through. The pool is essentially developed, but the policy, the full outline of it will come, I don't think in January, because between now and January 8th, with the holidays, we don't have a lot of working days. The
Right.
people will be around, so it will probably be more February, and that's why I was saying February.
Thank you.
It's a more realistic date to have a full policy set forward to move forward on.
Chairman Peters, this is Director Griffin. I have a question, if I could, that relates to Judy's question. I also did not see Stetson's report on here. So in regards to the updated or the review, whatever we want to call it, that's due January 31st, I don't see any of those updates posted on the website. Anything, there was going to be reports. Is there a timeline when that's going to come out to where the district can review that before it gets submitted? It is due January 31st, correct?
Chair, if I might answer the question. I'm confused, Chuck, as to why you would be asking that when the court has identified that your entire litigation strategy is to replace Sigma and a GSP. So while this board would much prefer to move forward in a GSP regulatory schedule and with a regulatory process with local control, the Water District has taken an approach of litigating for the sole purpose of overturning the GSP while withholding information for the GSP. So I'm confused by the comment, how we are going to handle that issue that we now have with the Water District openly in court arguing that. You now have the state of California in an amicus letter acknowledging and clearly providing that that is your goal. It has been stated by your attorneys. So I'm confused as to why you would ask us to invest money into a process that you're trying to short circuit through a litigation.
Well, I kind of disagree with you on what you say our process is. I think we all have the same goal. And hearing what happened in closed session today, I would agree that we all have the same goal of reaching the requirements of Cigna by 2040. That's the same goal that the Water District has. And that's the desire that we are following and pursuing. We filed the adjudication, in my opinion, and this is my personal opinion, to establish a water right for everybody in this valley, and we needed to file the adjudication to find out what the Navy's requirement was. The only thing we are requesting any different is, in my thought, is to look at the new science that we have and to look at what we believe the safe yield is and still reach sustainability by 2040 as the requirements of Sigma State. And so that's where we're at. The reason I'm asking the question is because in, I believe, the March or April meeting, Stetson said that there was going to be updates, that we're going to have all this stuff posted for PAC to look at, for the TAC to look at, for the public to review, and they would have these done in steps, and we've seen none of that. So I was just asking if that's going to be out and available for us and the public to look at before it gets submitted, or is the report just going to get submitted at the January meeting, I'm assuming, and then be turned into the state by January 31st? That was my only question. It was very simple. Is it going to be done, or are we going to only get it at the January meeting and then it get turned in January 31st?
So Chuck, as I said, I'm not sure what we're going to do there.
Okay.
But I think you should go back and read the amicus letter from the State of California Department of Justice, which was submitted on behalf of DWR, the State Water Resources Control Board, that quotes the court saying your motivation in the litigation is different than you just put forward. I don't know if your attorneys are having discussions with you, or if what's going on there, why there's a breakdown, what's being argued in court versus what you're saying up here. But this isn't the first time we've had that situation. You said in this meeting a few months ago, told de minimis well owners that you were supportive of them having class counsel, and you still have not filed anything in the adjudication seeking class counsel for the 90% of well owners in this basin that your attorney has said he will default, which means they will lose water rights because of that. So,
In my opinion of that is different.
Let me finish, sir. You made those comments. Your attorneys aren't following forward with them. This is now another time where you're telling me your version of what you filed is different than what your attorneys are putting forward in court. And this isn't my word. If you would like, I will again suggest you read the amicus letter from the Department of Justice, read the quote of the court. Your attorneys are very clear. Their whole process for the adjudication is to overturn the GSP entirely. Their plan was to come up with a physical solution set forward with an agreement between you, Mojave, Meadowbrook, and Cyril's that would replace the GSP. That is what was argued in court. That's what you've stated in court. Those are your attorneys. If they're not doing what you expect them to do, I think you should have a discussion with them. But that is what's happening in court. This isn't my view of the world. This is the view of the state of California's opinion also. So if you wanted to have what you're saying, you did not need to have a safe yield trial. We do not need to spend, and we're going to see in the budget here in a minute, $2.5 million on expert fees for this GA to defend the sustainable yield. The Water District itself will have to come up with another $2.5 million for its experts. Those aren't the litigation costs. You know, I appreciate Josh, but I get paid salary, so when I'm working at 2 o'clock in the morning, doesn't help me. Your attorney gets paid hourly. What happens doesn't affect my salary one bit or the other. If all of a sudden an attorney has multiple hours more work, they're gonna get paid more. If your consultant, Tim Parker, has multiple hours more work, he gets paid more. We do not need to have a $5 million impact next year on this basin for a sustainable yield trial. You can argue the Navy's Federal Reserve right without a sustainable yield trial. You can take the percentages without a sustainable yield trial. We do not need to have a battle of experts and a sustainable yield trial. And since the sustainable yield is the cornerstone of any GSP, it is the number at which everything is based upon. Do you have a project? You base your project and whether or not your project reached sustainability based on the sustainable yield number. So you are challenging the cornerstone, the bedrock of the GSP in your adjudication. I think it's time that we be honest about that and set that forward. Now, as to what this GSA does with the update of the GSP while you're in litigation, openly challenging its bedrock, is something that we will address and moving forward. But right now, you are in litigation attacking the bedrock of the plan that this board adopted that you voted for. And let's be clear about that. Let's not sugarcoat it. Let's not say, this is what I was thinking. Those are what your attorneys are arguing.
And I would agree with your statement that the Water District did vote for this plan. I believe that it was a unanimous vote. This plan was to be a fluid plan when it was described, and it would change, and that's what the district is asking for, is for the science to be reviewed instead of just being told that the science isn't valid or no, there's no review. So our opinion's different than your opinion. I'm not gonna argue legal because I'm not an attorney, and I definitely am not gonna get into that. I just had a question on whether or not those things were gonna be posted as they said they were. I've had people in the public ask me that. I had people at our meeting ask me that. One of the other directors asked me that question at the meeting Monday night. I assured him that I would ask the question, and so that's what I was doing. But
Chairman, if I may add one thing to that. Chuck, you're saying
Yeah,
science.
If you want to hop in there just briefly, and then let's just finish up with board member comments after that.
Yeah, Chuck, you're talking about science. A 30-page report is a conclusionary report. There's no science in that. Your report says your model isn't completed. You used in that report a model from 2009, which had a safe yield half of what you now say it is. If you would like to provide this GSA with the model so that we can review it and properly include it in a update, I'm sure we can. I would also say that I'm sure the January 31st deadline for an update is more of a guidepost than it is a formal, you must by this date. And if you provided us a model to review, we could start reviewing it. In fact, I believe, I understand at least, I should say, that the Water District was essentially informed of that at the Aqua Conference. So if you have your model, we're all ears. We would love to see it so we could include it.
And we would love to see the groundwater authority's
you
model also.
You can't also tell me at the same time, while you don't have a model for me, why are we updating, and we're updating without the model? Like, you're at the same point saying we're not reviewing the science, but you haven't given us the science, and you want us to do it by January 31st. So, you know, I don't know how I square those issues. As a staff member that advises the board, I don't know how to square that.
Okay.
I'd like to add a comment.
Okay. Sure, go ahead.
So, Council Hall, am I correct in saying that the citizens of Ridgecrest, being the majority of the ratepayers for the Water District, with the pursuit of the Water District in challenging the safe yield and kind of backdooring going after the GSP, aren't the citizens paying on both sides of the front here?
They're paying on more than both sides of the front, Director Heyman. If you live in the city of Ridgecrest, you are responsible for paying through your taxes defense funds for the city of Ridgecrest. The Water District in early meetings had identified through some of its board members that it didn't appreciate how much water was given to the community's parks free of replenishment fee charge, which means they won't be charged anything in an import project. They didn't like that. So if you live in the city of Ridgecrest and you're receiving water from the Water District, you are paying City of Ridgecrest fees, the GA's fees, the Water District's fees, and the county's fees, but I'll be honest, my fees in the adjudication are very small as I'm on salary, and the county's water right is a whopping 20 acre-foot for the land use facility. So, you know, the dump. So we don't have a lot to fight over that, but yes, if you live in those, you are gonna have 5 million plus on top of whatever the city invests in its litigation costs for next year. I mean, it is an astronomical number. And I don't know why we would be doing this. And I also want to make sure we're very clear on this. There was no living number really with the sustainable yield. If something came up that showed it should be different, fine, let's put it in the model. But right now, we just have a conclusionary report written by the Water District's hydro consultant. We don't have we don't have a model. We don't have anything to put into the model. We are currently running the model. We have been running the model. We are still locked on 7650. And let's also understand, that model wasn't created by this GA. It was created for the United States Navy by the Desert Research Institute, which is the University of Nevada. Tenured professors that had no investment in this basin, no concern in what the numbers were what they were. To argue that this GA would somehow want to inflate or deflate that number is not nonsensical, especially deflate. If you inflate, you can save some money. But if you deflate, it doesn't help anything. So, you know, bottom line is, we have no reason to believe that 7650 is not the number. If the Water District has some model or something we're missing, it needs to be done in more than a conclusionary report, and I'll leave it at that.
Respectfully, I think we're straying pretty far from agenda item 7 or 8.
That's all.
Okay. Are there any other board member comments? Or actually, if we're still on public comment, excuse me. Any other members of the public that would like to speak?
No one is coming forward, and there's no one on the phone.
Oh, now there is.
Oh, there is now. Sorry. Caller, go ahead. Caller, you can go ahead and make your comment.
Hello, can you hear me? This is Renee Westolusk.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I just wanted to bring to the attention of the board and our general manager, there was an article in the Bakersfield Californian on December 6th entitled Kern County Battle Over Groundwater and Desert May Head to the State Supreme Court. In that article, it's written by Lois Henry, I know Director Heyman is aware of this article, but I didn't know if the rest of the board members and our general manager, but something needs to be refuted. There's like at least 3, misinformation, misstatements of not telling the actual truth on our water basin. One of the things it says in the article is that the water district got nearly 0 in pumping allocations, things like that, which are not true. So I just wanted to know, is the board aware of this article that was in the Bakersfield Californian for December 6th?
Yes, we are. I've seen it. I believe most everybody on the board has seen it, but thank you for bringing that up, Ms. Westolask.
Okay, will will the GA be addressing it in future, public relations releases, correcting the information?
I don't know if we're going to be addressing that article specifically, but we are working on expanding our communications and engagement and putting as much accurate information as we can out there.
Okay, because my biggest concern is the public's being told incorrect information. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it.
I'm with you. Thank you. Okay, any other members of the public that would like to comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to board member comments. Any comments from the board? Okay, seeing none, that takes us to the consent agenda. And that includes items 9A through D, and item D includes items 1 through 8. Is there any public comment on the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
I'd like to, I have a question on the consent calendar, if I could. Items 5 and 6.
Sure.
I'm not questioning the validity of those. I know those are true expenditures, but that was set forth to expire this coming year in 2025. Is that going to be reviewed again, or I see it's in the budget, so are we going to look at that again in 2025? I believe it expires in October, and that's the agreement for the groundwater authority to pay the city's legal fees in exchange for the right to the, I believe it specifies the wastewater.
Chairman, if I might respond to that. Chuck, I'm not understanding what your question is, and let me say why. These fees aren't for the wastewater. These are for the amount of money that the Ridgecrest has put into the GA and is being reimbursed, just like the water district was and the county was.
So this is not part of the agreement then?
This is not part of the wastewater because we haven't been moving forward on any wastewater.
Okay, that was my
because
question.
The
I
water
was
district
just
turned
curious.
it down.
Okay.
So,
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on the consent agenda? Okay, all right, not seeing any. We had a motion. I didn't hear if there was a second.
There was.
Second.
Okay, great. Can we have a vote, please?
Chairman Peters,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hayman,
Aye.
Director Griffin,
Aye.
Director Vallejo,
Aye.
Director Itnire.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Item 10 is Resolution 03-24 regarding the 2025 board rotation. And I'm not sure who is going to be taking that item. Or if we need any kind of report on that, if we just need a motion on it.
I can briefly, if you'd want me to give some background to it. This is like the fourth time around on it, so I'll just do it real quickly if you'd like. This is just a resolution to identify that the rotation will again be the city and the county, and the water district is not going to be in the rotation that they otherwise would be in because of the litigation and their own stepping out of closed session and other items that we deal because of their litigation. So their attorneys advised them that they have conflict issues, so they're not able to participate fully. And because of that, we've made the steps now. I think this is the fourth year where the rotation has just been with the city and the county. And it will continue that next year, so Chairman Heyman would be the board president, and now Chair Peters would be the vice chair.
And
Okay, thank you.
I would just like.
Is there any, oh, go ahead.
Sorry to override you. I would just like to make a comment that I personally disagree with that opinion. I believe that as the water district representative, no matter who's in place, could chair this board even if there was an opinion different on some things, I believe that we're quite capable to chair a board, and I think it's wrong to overstep, but it's just my opinion.
Okay, thank you, Director Griffin. Are there any other comments or members of the public that would like to speak on this item?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Chairman Peters,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hayman,
Aye.
Director Griffin,
No.
Director Vallejo,
Aye.
Director Hitnyer.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Item number 11 is the board review and approval of the 2025 budget. And I guess I'll turn it over to Carol.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we have a few slides to take you through the budget itself and the staff reports in your packet. The slides will just give us a few highlights, so we'll just walk through that. Let's see, next slide. Just a bit of an overview. We have a total budget with approximately $8.86 million in projected expenditures and total revenues projected at $8.57 million. So that's kind of a general overview of what the budget looks like. Let's go to the next slide and we'll break that down a little bit. Our projected total fee revenue.
Carol, can I jump?
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to jump in there real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's my connection or if it's the feed, but that is so blurry. It's just not readable. But I just want to clarify that these are going to be on the website if there's anybody that's following along that can see those documents. Is that correct?
They're not yet, but April can put them on the website, absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so our projected total fee revenue, $3.19 million, and that refers to our basically our assessments, extraction fee, augmentation fee, and the shallow well mitigation. Let's move on. Next slide. And I think I glossed over the initial slide that showed that most of the revenue was going to come from grants. So we have over $5 million projected in grant revenue, with the remaining $3.5 million coming from our fee revenue. So total projected expenses are $8.86 million. You can see a general breakdown here with administration, non-departmental. We have these are basically the budget items that you'll see with detail in the larger budget. And along the bottom, you can see how each of those items total by revenue allocation. Next slide. This again is just a summary of what the budget looks like, beginning and ending balances. So the key aspect of this slide is the transfer in and transfer out, because the extraction fund needs to be balanced with the transfer or loan from the augmentation fund. This will require $588,000 from the augmentation fund, as well as another $283,000 from prior year balance, or what you might refer to as reserves. And here's just a snapshot of what we're projecting for our grant revenue, a little over $5 million, and this is to come from a variety of different grants that we have received, including the Sigma Implementation Grant, Urban Community Drought Relief Grant, and the EPA Resilience Grant money that I think we're still waiting to sign that agreement, but that's forthcoming. Wanted to highlight what the Groundwater Authority's outstanding obligations are, and generally these are to in-kind services repayments to the city for use of their council and for use of the council chambers. So you can see each year is itemized, estimated or actual, and then the repayments that we've made, including what we've just approved today. And then we have interfund loans that we're tracking for future repayment, what we've done in the past to basically transfer or borrow money from the augmentation fund to the extraction fund. So this is it was just for tracking purposes. And these are, as far as the budget goes, the obligation repayments that we have identified in this budget, including another $500,000 repayment to the city, plus another $317,000. So those are repayments anticipated on our outstanding obligations. So here's a little bit more detail on the budget, including what it looks like with those transfers included and all funds balanced. And we can just go to the next slide as well. So you can see that some of the detail is provided for the categories as far as what the expected budget amounts are. And let's go to the last slide. The next slide. Okay, and so this shows the total expenses, again, at 9.4 million, equivalent to what the revenue number was, and this is because all funds are balanced with those expected transfers. So that is, that's the overview. So I'm happy to answer questions.
Okay, thanks, Carol. Before we go to the public, are there any members of the board that would like to ask any questions?
We do have,
Okay, not
we
hearing-
have someone walking up.
Okay, go ahead whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, George Kroll, Water District. I was looking at the budget and I was trying to understand, it looked like it was a balanced budget. Do you have other accounts where you have funds set aside? In particular, we're wondering, is there a fund where you've set aside money to actually purchase water, where you actually have a balance of, I don't know, I couldn't find anything in there. It looked
Yeah.
like, so like at the augmentation fee, it's at the beginning balance and there was a blank. I don't know if that meant zero. And at the end, there was a blank. Does that mean there's
No,
zero in that?
what you're looking at is the proposed budget for next year. So it doesn't include reserves. It doesn't, we don't report that in a budget. Basically, for next year's budget, we're only looking at what our expected expenditures are and what are the revenues and the sources to cover those expenditures. So you don't see that in this particular document. What you want to look at is the monthly financial statements, look at the cash balance report, and that will show the money that we have.
Yeah, and I've looked at those, and I can't, I'm not a budget person. Can I request at the next meeting you sort of talk about how much is in those reserves, perhaps, like, so, and what they're for?
Sure, it's just, generally we have them for review and questions at every meeting. Again, the cash balance report at the bottom will show.
Will that include this
money
meeting?
available, and because we don't have surplus money in extraction, basically anything in the bank is augmentation fund money.
Okay, so let me see if I can get that in plain English. So there's no money to purchase water in the bank?
It's exactly the opposite of what I said.
Okay, so how much money is in the bank to purchase water?
Well, I don't have a financial statement prepared for this meeting, but I'll be happy to let you know later.
So at the next meeting, we're gonna,
Next meeting's fine.
that would be awesome. Thank you so much.
Would any other members of the public like to make a comment? Okay, not hearing any.
Chairman Peters, it looks like we do have someone on the phones.
Okay, go ahead, caller.
Hello, this is Renee West-Lusty.
Yes, go ahead.
I just want to know what the 317 thousand repayment, is that money we still owe the county for their advance?
No, actually, no, the county was repaid, I'm going to say 2 or 3 years ago. These are repayments to the city.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other callers on the phone?
I do not see any.
Thank you. Any other board discussion or motion?
Do we need a motion? I don't think we need a motion.
Make a motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Chairman Peters? Vice Chair Hayman?
Aye.
Director Griffin?
Aye.
Director Vallejo?
Aye.
Director Itnire?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. That takes us to item 12, which is the board review and approval of the 2025 legislative agenda, the 2025 Capital Core Group Work Plan and Contract Amendment. And I will turn it over to McKinney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Included in your packet is a revised legislative agenda for the 119th congressional session, the 2025 and 2026 California legislative session, along with forecasts for 2027. We prepare an annual legislative agenda for the Groundwater Authority's approval to take us into 3-year governmental affairs and water marketing actions. In the document, you will see that our goals have not changed between 2024 and 2025. And then we have provided a status of the directives that were approved by the board for the 2024 activities. We've already talked about WRDA. As you are well aware, the state's budget did not allow us to seek $25 million in a state budget request. In addition, the city of Ridgecrest asked us to cancel, assisting them with a $5 million DCIP grant during 2024, and then all other funding activities are continued. Of course, 2024 marked the end of the session, so we are beginning anew in the 2025 session. Not much has changed with regard to many of the directives, although many of the directives associated with the interconnection project have changed in order to now facilitate the transition to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Our scope of work is in there, and I'll answer any questions that you have, as well as our proposed budget summary, which goes basically section by section of our work plan and talks about what we will be doing in that particular year. And I'm happy to answer any questions from there that the board may have.
Okay, thank you, Mike. And just one more time, just because I'm excited about it, I just wanted to thank you guys for your work on getting us to this point. You guys have done a really phenomenal job, and I really appreciate it. Looking forward to making some more headway in 2025. Are there any other comments or questions from the board?
Yeah, this is Director Griffin. Mr. McKinney, I voted for the approval of seeking the funds for WRDA, and I want to tell you that I'm appreciative of what you guys do, and I will support this contract, but I want it to be public that it's not supporting the interconnection pipeline. It's supporting what WRDA described, and what was awarded was a solution to the valley. So I believe we do need to pursue the funds and keep pursuing funds and work together, but maybe not through an interconnection project, but I do support, and I'm thankful that Capital Corps, I think they do a great job, and they dig in deep, that's for sure.
Thank you, Director Griffin. Any other comments from the board?
Yeah, this is John Vallejo. I don't see. Sorry, there's some feedback. I don't see an actual contract amendment attached to this agenda item in my packet, at least. I see a budget request. Am I missing something?
Let me look through mine real quick. Is there Do you know,
Director Vallejo, the
on
one
there-
online has
Oh,
it.
I'm sorry, it's on the second page, it's not on the back. There we go.
Oh, apologies.
Crisis number.
okay, great. Any other questions or comments from the board?
Just the Director Heyman, I just wanted to say what a tremendous lift that Capital Corps with Mike McKinney and Jeff Simonetti and Todd performed, and the success on WERDA. I want to congratulate them on such great work. So that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Heyman. Okay, any other board member comments or questions before we go to the public? Okay, not hearing any. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak on this item?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion. Okay, thank you.
Second.
Chairman Peters. Chairman Peters.
Aye.
Vice Chair Hayman.
Aye.
Director Griffin.
Aye.
Director Vallejo.
Aye.
Director Itnire.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, members of the board.
Okay, our next, thank you. Our next item is 13, and that's the board review and approval of communications agreements with Westbound Communication.
I think I'll take.
I'm not sure who's going to be taking this
I
item.
think Michael.
As I was about to say, I think I'll take that chair. As we are all aware, communications and engagement plan and a policy and hiring professional to oversee that has been a request of both the Policy Advisory Committee and the board for a while. Moving now into WERDA funding and transitioning into actual creation of a project out here in construction in the coming years. We felt it was time to do that. We also need to respond to some, continuing information lapses in this community that need to be dealt with that haven't. That's what this contract is for. It's set up on a needs basis, done on a time and materials basis, as we engage with them, and they provide the professional expertise to tell us what we should and shouldn't be doing moving forward for communicating. I guess that's the overview of it. I don't know if anybody wants me to get any deeper into it, but I think that's pretty much sums it up.
Okay, I think that's sufficient for me. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
I just have a couple comments. I read through what seemed to me to be the job description and then a response from the company. I just feel that I could not support this type of a company letter being sent out by this board attacking a member on a constant basis with what I believe are falsehoods. And I believe to work together, this is creating the wrong image from the Groundwater Authority to attack Searles Valley Minerals and the Indian Wells Valley Water District. So I would be appalled if our board members voted to approve something like this to be sent out.
Well, I'll just say I disagree that this is attacking Searles Valley Minerals, and unfortunately, nobody wants, from the board that I know of, certainly not myself, wants to attack any member of the board, but we do have to correct a steady stream of misinformation coming out from the water district. And that's made that necessary, unfortunately, because the public is becoming misinformed. And we're being asked, were we expected to just sit back and not respond and let the actual information come out to the public? We can't do that. We have to let them know the facts and share that information and keep them informed. So that would be my argument in favor of this. But I'll open it up if there are any other members of the board that would like to speak on it.
Now, I'll just respond by saying I don't feel that we have misinformed. I think our information has been factual, and it will continue to be factual.
well, we can disagree, and I'll try and bring some examples next time.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Chairman, if I may, is there anything in particular you have a concern with that you believe is unfactual in what was there?
No, I don't want to get into it with you, Phil. I stated my opinion for my fellow board members to hear, and if they feel that it's appropriate to make this kind of a statement, then that's how they feel. I will continue to be friends with them. It's not an issue of that. It's just I don't feel it's appropriate. I think it will start a back and forth issue. I don't want to see that in this community. I think we all have the same desire, which I stated before, that we want to see the goals of Sigma attained and reach sustainability in this basin by 2040 through maybe a different project and looking at other avenues other than the pipeline. I think that is our difference, is the pipeline coming from the south and the sustainable yield. And so I'm not going to argue it with you. It's not my job to do that. I'm a board member to talk to my fellow board members. That's what I'm asking them to do. If they don't want to do it, that's their choice.
Well, I understand that, Director, but let me be more clear. As staff, we have to work with our consultants and advise the board. And if you believe that there is something not factually appropriate or incorrect in this, we need to know that so we can address it. If you're not addressing what the factual problems are, I don't know what they are. So for example, that says that to this day, we do not have a water allocation chart from the water district, aside from the one it voted for, which is the GA's water allocation chart. Do you have one that you would like to share with us that we can put forward on the website?
Not at this time, I do not. It will be reported as required, I believe in court by February is what it was said. Is that correct? And but let's get this straight. If you want to do the argument, the back and forth, there's several issues. We've asked for over and over again the model from the Groundwater Authority. We were told it was the Navy's. It belonged to the Navy. It was top secret. It could not be revealed. In court, it was stated that it was not the Navy's by a Navy employee, that the model belonged to the Groundwater Authority. So there's back and forth where there's statements made by each entity that is maybe different. And so we need to work together, in my opinion, to come up with a solution instead of the back and the forth bickering. And this is said, just like we were talking a few minutes ago on the money. And I mentioned it to Director Heyman. The citizens of the city of Ridgecrest are paying through the water district fee, which goes to the Groundwater Authority, which then in turn pays the city back for their legal fees. We just approved that.
That is incorrect.
So the citizens aren't being charged twice because the city's not charging them for anything. So it's kind of a misdirection, in my opinion, of what's being portrayed. So it's back and forth. And that's what I think needs to stop. And to put this out and to hire a firm to basically target the water district, I feel is wrong as a board. But my fellow board members will do what they want to do, and that's how we'll move on.
So, Chairman, I know we should be moving on, but we do need to respond to three things that were just stated. We have to address them. So if you can indulge me for a moment. One, the adjudication costs of the city of Ridgecrest are not being paid for by this GSA. Period. End of subject. The costs that the city of Ridgecrest incurs because its attorney works for this GSA are reimbursed. It is a completely infactual statement to say that the adjudication costs of the city are covered. Second, a water allocation chart is not part of a release in the court hearing. That was the model. You can provide a water allocation chart today based on your assumption of what safe yield is, just as this GA did and just as your board voted to accept. Third, you just stated that the Department of Justice's attorney stated in open court that the model could be turned over and it didn't include any secret information. That is false.
I did not say this district attorney. I said it was stated in court that the model did not belong to.
You said by the Navy's employee.
By the Navy's employee.
That is the You know what, I'm sorry, if I said district attorney, I mean Department of Justice attorney. If I said that, I am sorry. It's the Department of Justice's attorney who said that. But your district attorney did say at a board meeting 2 months ago that that's what was stated. That is not what was stated. And today, this morning at 7 o'clock, we received a letter from the United States Navy to the Board of Directors asserting that there is secret information in that model, which we have been saying for a while. And I want to also, so everybody out there knows this, the district's counsel, Jim Worth, was a GA attorney for the development of the GSP. He was actively involved in the determination to use the DRI groundwater model for these purposes. To now set forward that you have a problem with the fact that we used a highly detailed model that included some information that cannot be released is, I think, disingenuous. Now, I won't add anything more other than to say that is a factual document. We deal with facts in that document. If you believe there are any misstated facts, we would be happy to correct them. If you would like to provide us all of the information you had before you when you voted to adjudicate this basin and sue everybody in the basin, I'd be happy to see those. We've asked for them. We've never been provided any science to that effect. We have a conclusionary report. We don't have a model. You're now saying the model was given to us in February in a trial and a release of a model when you've also stated you want to be involved in Sigma, which means we should be looking at the model now for an update to our GSP. I cannot square those two binary issues that are completely opposed to each other.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is an agreement before us that's for services upon request. There's no specific statement we're going to be putting out here, or any back and forth being put out there. This is just having a communications service available if and when we choose to utilize it. Is that correct?
It is to use it as we move forward. We expect to have some discussion about how to move forward and to, get into a communication with the public. There is a factual set of this to provide a background as to where we are, what has been going on. It's not comprehensive to any means, but it does provide a flavor of what we're dealing with, what has been occurring, and that's why it's in there, because you can't engage. You'll notice one of the parts of the letter is the communications consultant saying, if garbage in, garbage out. So we have to sort of set the venue, set what the factual basis are, set what we're dealing with. If there's anything that's not factual in that, we would be happy to address that. But that needs to be brought to us, not we don't like the facts, we won't express the facts, they're just facts we don't like.
So I'd like to make a comment. I'd like to back up a few years. There was discussion on whether the GA was making good communications with the public at large, and I believe the agreement was that we weren't doing the best job in the world. I remember having a discussion with Mick Gleason about this years past, and I want to say there's a very real need for the GA to have a public communications company to give us guidance and represent us in putting the message out. While I've heard the confrontational side of it, which I think is very real. I agree with everything that's in this background. Many entities have come out and put their opinions, whether they feel it's right or we feel it's wrong, out into the public. And I don't think that we've done the greatest job in countering that and getting corrections to it and putting our message out. So we need to do that. It's very important. Secondly, this isn't all about negative. We do a lot of good things, just like today is a huge day. We've cleared a hurdle greatly with WERDA, $50 million amount of money from the government is huge, and we need to be able to put the positive things, the accomplishments that the GA is doing out to the public. So it's not just a negative, battle here, which I firmly agree that we need to do that battle, because I think the court of public opinion out there has been used pretty freely by these various entities, and it's time that we do have a professional way of countering and getting correction to it. So, but there's also a good side to it. Well, that's a good side. I'm not, it's just two different sides of it, but getting our goals, our accomplishments, and projections out to the public is extremely important. So, enough said.
Yeah, well said. I think it's a great thing that we could be, should be yelling about from the rooftops is this potential $50 million funding in our local community. It's going to be huge. So that being said, we're going to go to public comment before we ask for a motion. Are there any members of the public that would like to comment on item number 12, or excuse me, item number 13?
Judy Decker again. I have a comment. I don't know anything about this company, but I think the idea is a good one with reservation. My comment is I attend the Water District meetings on a regular basis. And in particular, two of the directors of that organization spend a great deal amount of time criticizing this organization. And Chuck, you sit here every month and object to things and criticize this group. Some of it is justified. You need to find a better way to either be a part of this or not. This is a big chance for a water future in this valley, and we better not mess it up. And constantly criticizing this group, the GA, at your board meetings does not sit well with the public.
Thank you, Judy. I appreciate your comments, and I'll take them into consideration. Very
They
much.
aren't just,
Thank you.
they aren't just your comments. I mean, they aren't just my comments to you. It's to your board and your staff.
Thank you. Are there any other public speakers? Or anybody on the phones?
There is a caller.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, caller. Thank you. Go ahead, caller. Caller, go ahead.
Caller, you are free to submit your comment.
Yes, this is Renee Westerlusk, and I wholeheartedly support this hiring of the need better communication with the public. And it was obvious from that article on the December 6th from the Bakersfield Californian that the writer of that article didn't appropriately interview all the entities. It seemed like it was very a one-sided article. And I don't believe she they vote for this. The misinformation campaign has got to stop, and the GA needs to be put in a positive light that shows what the GA is actually doing to save this valley. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Any other callers on the phones or on the floor? I see one speaker coming up.
George Kroll from the Water District. You know, I get to be the spokesman for the Water District at a lot of, public events. And so when I see this and they say there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation, it concerns me because I think some of that is, sort of aimed at me. And in particular, we put out this cost analysis And would you include that in your notation of misinformation or disinformation? Anybody? And I was just going to say that because if you consider that not correct information, the offer has been standing and continues to stand, where the Water District will work with the GA to refine those numbers to make sure they're correct. Thank you.
Any other public speakers?
I'd like to make one more
Okay,
comment
so-
if I could, Chairman Peters.
Yes, sir.
I want to make it clear, I am very much in support of having a public relations person and outreaching to this community, but reading through this SAL is what concerns me. It doesn't say a whole lot about public outreach. It talks specifically, the addendum A, project scope of work, it's completely about the water district, and that's what my problem is. An outreach program, I agree with 1,000%. Everything needs to get out, word announcements. I support that 100%. But to make a SAL, which is going out for a request, and base it on just the water district or Searles Valley in part together, I disagree with that. A public relations request, yes, I agree. But I could not support it with it being written as a scope of work to just target attacking somebody else.
Chairman, if I may, and I'll be very brief, but I need to also respond to that. Again, as I'd said previously, there needs to be a backdrop to what the consultant is walking into and will be working on. This, as you call SAO, is a 4-page factual analysis of where we are in this basin. I will tell you, we have just heard today that we have a settlement with Mojave Pistachio. Mojave Pistachio is not included in that SAO, as you keep calling it, although it is actually a factual determination and a statement of where we are in this basin, which deals with the adjudication. And where we are as a GSA, which what we should have been doing, versus an adjudication, how we got there. The only people right now that appear to be actively involved in the adjudication is Searles Valley Mineral and the Water District. Meadowbrook did not file anything in the appeal process. I presume they have decided to stay out of it. If they haven't, we could talk about Meadowbrook also in there, but when that was drafted, the only active participants that appear to be moving forward in a groundwater adjudication are the Water District and Searles Valley. And they're moving forward, as we've just heard today. You say, again, you want us to look at science, but you have not provided us any science. I am waiting for the model. I appreciate seeing it. I would appreciate seeing a water allocation chart, not the one you've adopted here and then tried to shoot all sorts of arrows at and personally attack and do everything. I would love to see a water allocation chart from the Water District so that de minimis users who asked the Water District 2 months ago how much water they will get can put that forward. This is about the adjudication. This is not about anything else. It sets the factual background.
Director Griffiths, you may be a little more satisfied if we just focus on the goals and objectives, the target audience, and the strategies and tactics on the very last 2 pages of the proposal. That's where my focus is, and that's where my initial question was with regard to how is this going to operate moving forward. It'll be upon request. I'm not seeing this summary of the project scope of work being the message that we're about to start sending out in terms of like just putting this out there. It's what I understand is going to happen is when issues come up and as needed for these goals and objectives that are defined 1 through 6, for these audiences, this agency will work with this communications outfit to put out the appropriate, as this agency deems appropriate, the appropriate statement of facts or communications to the public to make sure they're all informed on the issues that we want them to be informed about. So in my mind, it's got some baggage in the background with regard to dynamics that have been going on for years now, but this is looking forward. It's not necessarily something that's going to be promoting what's happened in the past. It's going to be promoting what's going on and what needs to be communicated to the public. So for those reasons, I'm supportive of moving forward with this agreement, and when the chair is ready, I'll make a motion to that effect.
Thank you. Yeah, if there's no further discussion, I would definitely entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Thank you.
Chairman Peters,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hayman,
Aye.
Director Griffin,
Aye.
Director Vallejo,
Aye.
Director Itnire.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And that takes us to the conclusion of our open session agenda.
Did we do 14?
One more.
Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped over one. My fault. That's board review and approval of amendment number 1 to agreement for professional legal services with Richards, Watson, and Gershon. Who's going to be taking that item?
I guess I'll take it briefly. There's not really much to say about it. Our law firm, which has been doing some incredible work for us, our outside law firm that is special counsel, has not raised their fees in, I believe it's 7 years, Keith, or is it 8?
Staff report says 7.
7?
Seven-
Yeah,
7 plus.
so, we're close to 8. This just brings them up into, let's just say where they should be right now. The rates put forward, they're in the packet, so I won't delve too much into them, but they are commensurate with and representative of what water attorneys in the state of California are paid for this type of work. And I don't think there's anything else unless somebody has questions for me, or I believe Jim is on the line still. Jim Markman might be able to answer any questions if somebody has any.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? And not seeing any, are there any members of the public that'd like to comment on this item?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve.
Sure. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Chairman Peters,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hayman,
Aye.